The hospital told me my mom was sedated. Then the front desk said I wasn't approved to see her. When I got upstairs, my sister was waiting with a manila folder and a smile that didn't match the moment. She claimed Mom had already decided, and that I was the problem. My name is Ethan. I'm 38 years old and I live in Denver, Colorado. I work as an IT project manager for a mid-sized healthcare software company. Ironic, I know, considering where this story starts. My days are usually predictable: schedules, deadlines, conference calls, and solving problems that look urgent but rarely change anyone's life. Then my mom ended up in a hospital bed, and suddenly the only project that mattered was getting to her before something irreversible happened. If you've never watched a parent get old in slow motion, let me explain the quiet panic of it. It's not one big dramatic collapse. It's a series of little warnings. Mom forgetting where she put her keys. Mom sitting down a little too carefully. Mom sounding tired on the phone even when she insists she's fine. My mom, Diane, is 68. She's the kind of woman who taught herself to fix leaky faucets from YouTube videos, who kept a little notebook in her kitchen drawer with everyone's birthdays written in neat pen, and who always called me honey, even after I grew a beard and started paying my own mortgage. And I was still her son, even if my family liked to pretend I was optional. Because there's my sister. Her name is Lauren. She's 41, 3 years older than me, and for as long as I can remember, she's been the center of gravity in our family. When we were kids, Lauren could slam a door hard enough to shake the picture frames, and my mom would still come after her with a soft voice, asking what was wrong, asking how to make it better. If I got frustrated and raised my voice even a little, I'd get the lecture. Ethan, don't be difficult. Your sister is sensitive. Sensitive. That word followed her into adulthood like a crown. Lauren lived 10 minutes from Mom. I lived a 2-hour flight away. Lauren showed up for holidays. I called. I sent gifts. I visited when work allowed. But in my family's unspoken scoreboard, proximity counted as love, and distance counted as selfishness. I tried not to resent it. Honestly, most of the time, I told myself it didn't matter. I built my own life. I paid my bills. I didn't ask my mom for money. I didn't lean on my family for support. I thought I was doing the mature thing by keeping the peace. But there's a difference between keeping the peace and letting someone erase you. The first time I felt that erasure in a way I couldn't ignore was about 6 months before the hospital. Mom called me late at night. Not a just checking in call. Not a how's work call. Her voice sounded thin, like paper. She said, "Honey, don't tell your sister I said this, but I'm tired." Tired how? She didn't answer directly. She talked around it the way moms do when they don't want to scare you. She mentioned she'd been dizzy. She mentioned her doctor wanted more tests. She mentioned she'd forgotten to eat lunch that day and that maybe that's all it was. I asked if Lauren knew. Mom paused, and I could hear the little calculation in her silence. "She worries," Mom finally said, like that was an excuse. I said, "Mom, I worry too." Another pause. Then softer, I know you do." After we hung up, I stared at my kitchen ceiling for a long time. Something in me shifted. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been kept at arm's length on purpose, not by Mom, but by the person who controlled access to her life. So I started calling more often. I started checking in like it was an appointment I couldn't miss. Mom seemed grateful, but also cautious, like she was afraid of getting caught. That alone made my stomach tighten. Lauren and I weren't exactly in open war. It was worse than that. We were in cold politeness. We'd exchange quick texts on birthdays. We'd like each other's posts. We'd smile in photos at Christmas like two actors who didn't share a script. But I knew her habits. I knew how she handled anything involving Mom. Lauren didn't ask. She announced. She didn't discuss. She decided. And when anyone challenged her, she didn't argue facts. She argued emotions. "I can't believe you'd say that. After everything I do, you're stressing Mom out. Do you want to be the reason she gets worse?" It was always framed like she was protecting Mom from me, like I was some kind of threat. Still, nothing prepared me for how fast everything escalated. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I got the call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail because I was in the middle of a status meeting. Something made me step out of the conference room and answer anyway. A woman's voice said, "Is this Ethan Miller?" My heart dropped before she even finished her sentence. "No one says your full name like that unless something's wrong. This is Mercy General Hospital," she continued. "Your mother, Diane Miller, has been admitted. We have you listed as family. Are you able to come in?" For a second I couldn't speak. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I remember staring at the office hallway carpet like it might tell me what to do. What happened? I finally managed. The woman kept her tone professional, careful. Your mother experienced a medical event. She's stable, but she's being evaluated. We recommend family be present. I asked if she was conscious. The woman hesitated, and that hesitation felt like a punch. She's sedated for now, she said. The doctor will explain more when you arrive. Sedated. My brain immediately supplied images I didn't want. Machines, tubes, alarms, Mom's hands lying still on hospital sheets. I felt my throat tighten so hard it hurt. I told my boss I had an emergency. I didn't wait for permission. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and I started driving home to pack. I called Lauren while I was still in the elevator. No answer. I called again. Voicemail. So I texted. Hospital just called. Mom admitted. Call me now. Still nothing. I called my mom's phone even though I knew she probably didn't have it. Straight to voicemail. At this point, the panic had a second layer. Not only was my mom in the hospital, but my sister, the person closest to her, was unreachable. That didn't feel accidental. Lauren always answered when it benefited her. When she didn't answer, it meant she was controlling the narrative. 20 minutes later, Lauren finally texted back. Mom's fine. Don't freak out. Doctors have it under control. That was it. No details. No come quickly. No I'm scared. Just a flat, dismissive message that made me feel like an annoying coworker, not her brother. I wrote back. What happened? What room? I'm flying in. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again, like she was crafting the exact amount of information she wanted me to have. Finally, she doesn't need extra stress. I'll handle it. That word handle lit something in me. I called her again. This time she answered, but her voice was already tight with irritation, like I'd interrupted her on purpose. What? She snapped. What happened to Mom? I demanded. Why didn't you answer? What's going on? Lauren exhaled dramatically. Ethan, calm down. She had some complications. They're doing tests. She's resting. Complications from what? From being 68 and not taking care of herself, Lauren said, and I heard the edge of blame she always slipped in when she wanted to sound competent. She's sedated. She can't talk. Put me on speaker with a doctor, I said, or text me the doctor's name. Lauren made a small laugh, sharp and humorless. You can't just demand things. I'm here. I'm the one dealing with it. Then tell me the room number, I said. I'm her son. I'm coming. And that's when her tone changed. It dropped into something calmer, colder, like she'd found the lever that always worked. You coming will upset her, Lauren said. She said she doesn't want to see you right now. My hand clenched around my phone so hard my fingers ached. Mom said that? Yes, Lauren replied smoothly. Before they gave her meds. She was very clear. I almost laughed from disbelief. Not because it was so convenient, so perfectly tailored to keep me away. And if I argued, Lauren could paint me as the selfish son who didn't respect Mom's wishes. I said carefully, Lauren, Mom and I talked 2 days ago. She was fine with me. She was happy I called. Lauren's voice sharpened. You don't know what she says to me when you're not around. She's been disappointed in you for years. There it was. The emotional knife, slid in casually. Disappointed. I swallowed hard. Tell me where she is. Lauren didn't answer right away. I heard hospital sounds in the background. Distant beeping. A rolling cart. She was definitely there. She was definitely beside my mother, acting like the gatekeeper of a kingdom. She's in ICU, Lauren finally said, like she was doing me a favor. But visitation is limited. I'll follow the rules, I said. I just need to be there. Lauren made that same small, bitter laugh again. You always show up when it's dramatic. You weren't here for the day-to-day. My chest burned. This isn't about you. It's about Mom. It is about Mom, Lauren shot back. And Mom doesn't want chaos. She wants peace. So for once, can you not make this about you? I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My hands were shaking. I stood in my kitchen staring at my suitcase like it didn't make sense anymore. I told myself, hospitals have rules. ICU is strict. Maybe Mom really had said something while scared, while confused, but deep down I felt a different truth forming. Lauren wasn't just keeping me updated poorly. She was positioning herself. And I knew my sister well enough to understand what that meant. When Lauren handled something, it didn't just mean she took charge of the logistics. It meant she took ownership of the story. Who was the devoted child? Who was the selfish one? Who cared? Who didn't? And when the time came, when decisions had to be made, Lauren would make sure she was the only person anyone listened to. I booked the earliest flight that night. I didn't ask Lauren's permission, and I didn't announce it. I simply went, because whatever story Lauren wanted to tell, I needed to see my mother with my own eyes. On the plane, I stared out the window at the dark clouds and tried to breathe normally. I kept replaying Lauren's words. "She doesn't want to see you." It echoed in my head like a locked door. And the more I thought about it, the more one question refused to leave me alone. If Mom truly didn't want to see me, why did my sister sound so satisfied saying it? When I landed, the airport lights felt too bright, like the world was pretending nothing was wrong. I picked up a rental car and drove straight to Mercy General with my suitcase on the back seat and my stomach in a hard knot. Hospitals at night have their own atmosphere. The hallways are quieter, but everything feels more serious. The fluorescent lights don't flicker, they hum. The smell of sanitizer is sharper. People speak in half whispers, like raising your voice might break something. I walked up to the front desk and gave my mom's name. The receptionist typed, looked at her screen, then looked back at me with that neutral expression staff use when they're about to tell you no in a polite way. "I'm sorry," she said. "Are you on the approved visitor list?" "I'm her son," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Ethan Miller." She clicked again. "Her primary contact has requested limited visitation. Only 2 visitors. Primary contact. Not daughter. Not family. Primary contact." I swallowed. "Can you call the nurse station? I just got into town. I need to see her." The receptionist hesitated, then picked up the phone. She spoke quietly, turned her head, listened, and hung up. "They said you'll need to speak with your sister," she told me. "Lauren Miller is listed as the decision maker." Decision maker. That word hit differently than primary contact. It wasn't just about visiting. It was about control. I forced a smile like I understood. "Where is she?" The receptionist checked. "ICU waiting room, 4th floor." I took the elevator up, my heart beating so loud I felt it in my ears. In my head I kept seeing my mom's face, awake, smiling, scolding me gently for worrying too much. I needed to replace that image with reality, even if reality was ugly. The ICU waiting room was half empty. A couple sat close together near a vending machine, eyes red. An older man stared blankly at a TV with the volume low. And there, in the center chair like she owned the room, was Lauren. She looked composed, hair brushed, makeup done, a cardigan draped over her shoulders like she was cold, even though the room wasn't. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed as if I'd broken into her house. "What are you doing here?" she asked, not quietly. I stopped in front of her. "I came to see Mom." Lauren's lips pressed into a thin line. "I told you not to come. You told me Mom didn't want to see me," I said. "I'm not taking your word for that." The couple near the vending machine glanced over. Lauren noticed and immediately dropped her voice, but her expression stayed sharp. "You're making a scene," she hissed. "This is ICU, Ethan. Have some respect." I leaned closer. "Then take me to her room. I'll be quiet. I'll follow every rule. But I'm seeing her." Lauren stood up slowly, like she was rising to address an unruly child. "No, just that. No explanation. No compromise." I felt heat crawl up my neck. "You don't get to decide whether I see my own mother." Lauren's face tightened with something almost like satisfaction. "Actually, I do. I'm her medical power of attorney." My mouth went dry. "You're what?" Lauren reached into her oversized purse and pulled out a manila folder, worn at the corners like it had been handled a lot in the last 24 hours. She tapped it once with her fingernail. "Mom signed it," she said. "A while ago, she wanted things organized." I stared at the folder like it was a weapon. "When did she sign that?" Lauren shrugged. "Recently, before she got worse. She trusted me, obviously." It was the obviously that did it, the casual arrogance. My mind raced through what I knew about my mom. Diane was cautious. She wasn't impulsive with legal documents. If she signed anything like that, I would have expected a conversation, at least a mention. We had talked 2 days ago. She didn't say a word. "Let me see it," I demanded. Lauren pulled the folder closer to her chest. "No, it has private information." "That's my mother," I said, voice shaking now. "You don't get to keep her information from me like you're some stranger." Lauren tilted her head, adopting the tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable to outsiders. "Ethan, you're tired. You just flew in. You're emotional. Let the doctors do their job. Let me handle things. That's what Mom wanted." Then she added, softer, like she was delivering the final blow. And honestly, she doesn't need you stressing her out right now. I stood there for a second, feeling like I'd walked into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. Fine, I said finally. Then I'll talk to her nurse, or the attending physician. Lauren stepped slightly into my path. They won't speak with you, because you told them not to, I asked. She didn't answer. Her silence was answer enough. I turned away from her and walked straight to the ICU reception desk. A nurse behind the counter looked up. Hi, I said. I'm Ethan Miller. I'm Diane Miller's son. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of her care. The nurse's eyes flicked to the computer. Her posture shifted, guarded. I'm sorry, she said gently. We have instructions on file regarding updates. You'll need to speak to the person listed. Lauren, I said, bitterness slipping through. My sister. The nurse gave a careful nod, like she'd seen this family dynamic 100 times. I tried again, calmer. I'm not asking you to tell me everything. I'm asking to see my mom for 5 minutes. I just want to sit with her. The nurse hesitated. ICU visitation is limited, and the patient is sedated. I know, I said, but I'm her son. Behind me, I heard Lauren's voice, too bright, too performative. There he is, she said, as if speaking to an audience. The traveling son. I turned. She was walking toward us, smiling at the nurse like they were co-workers. Hi, Lauren said sweetly. Sorry, he just got into town and he's anxious. Anxious, like I was a dog barking at thunder. Lauren leaned on the counter casually. Just to confirm, he's not on the visitor list. Mom was very clear. The nurse looked at me with sympathy, then at Lauren with compliance. That's correct. I felt my hands curl into fists in my jacket pockets. I forced them to relax. Getting angry in an ICU was exactly what Lauren wanted. She wanted me to look unstable, inappropriate, disrespectful. So I did the only thing I could do. I said, evenly, can you at least confirm her status? Is she stable? Is she in danger? The nurse glanced at Lauren again before answering. That glance told me everything. Lauren had already positioned herself as the authority. She's being monitored closely, the nurse said. The doctor will speak with family as soon as possible. Family, Lauren repeated, still smiling. Great, I'm here. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned and walked back to the waiting room because if I didn't remove myself, I was going to explode. I sat down hard in a chair, staring at the floor tiles. I could hear Lauren talking quietly at the counter, probably confirming her control, probably making sure nobody accidentally let me through. And that's when my phone buzzed. A text from my Uncle Mark, Mom's younger brother. Lauren must have called him already. Uncle Mark, what's going on with your mom? Lauren says you're causing trouble. I stared at the message, stunned. It was happening that fast. I wasn't even in the room with my mom, and I was already being framed as the problem. I texted back. I just got here. She won't let me see Mom. Says she has POA. I'm not causing trouble. I'm trying to see my mom. A few minutes later, another message came in. This time from my cousin Jenna. Jenna, hey, Lauren says Mom told her she doesn't want visitors except Lauren. Is that true? My chest tightened. Lauren wasn't just blocking me physically. She was building a wall around me socially, making sure that if I pushed, I'd be pushing against the whole family. I typed, I don't believe Mom said that. She's sedated. Lauren's controlling everything. No reply. I looked up and saw Lauren across the room, sitting with her legs crossed, texting rapidly with an expression of focus. She didn't look scared. She didn't look worried. She looked busy, like someone running a campaign. Then I noticed something else. The manila folder was back in her lap. She kept flipping it open, checking papers, then closing it again. Every time someone walked by, she pulled it closer as if shielding it from view. I tried to tell myself it was normal. Paperwork, hospital forms, insurance. But my instincts, the ones I'd ignored for years to keep peace, started screaming. Because Lauren didn't just want to handle Mom's care. She wanted to own Mom's decisions. And there was only one reason you rush legal authority while someone is sedated. You're afraid of what happens when they wake up. I stood and walked toward her again. Slower this time. Controlled. Lauren, I said. She didn't look up. What? I want a copy of the power of attorney, I said. If it's real, you should have no problem sharing it. Lauren finally raised her eyes. It's real. Then send me a photo, I said. Right now. Her jaw flexed. No. Why not? I asked. Lauren leaned back in her chair. Because you'll use it to create drama. You'll call lawyers. You'll make Mom's condition worse. You always do this. Turn everything into a fight. That accusation was so backwards I almost laughed. I'd spent my whole adult life avoiding fights with her. The one time I stepped into the ring, she acted like I was the one who loved conflict. I lowered my voice. I'm going to ask you one more time. Show me the document. Lauren's eyes flicked around the room, checking for witnesses. Then she leaned in and said, quietly, with a bite I recognized from childhood, "You have no idea what you're talking about, and if you keep pushing, I'll tell them you're harassing me, and they'll escort you out." For a second I saw it clearly, the whole structure she was building. Control the staff, control the family, control the story, and if I resisted, label me unstable. I stepped back, forcing myself to breathe. "Okay," I said, "I won't argue with you here." Lauren's expression relaxed slightly, like she'd won. Good. I turned away, but in my head, a different plan was forming, one that didn't involve shouting in an ICU waiting room. Because if Lauren truly had legal authority, it had to come from somewhere. It had to be signed, witnessed, processed. There had to be a trail, and trails can be followed. I walked to a quieter corner of the waiting room and pulled out my phone. I searched medical power of attorney requirements Colorado, even though we were in Colorado and I already knew the basics. Not because Google would solve it, but because I needed to ground myself in facts. What I read made my stomach sink further. A valid medical POA could give Lauren a lot of power, especially if Mom couldn't communicate. But then I saw something that made me sit up straighter. Execution matters. Timing matters. Capacity matters. Witnesses matter. Notarization matters, depending on the document. If Mom was sedated, confused, or impaired when something was signed, that document could be challenged. And suddenly Lauren's folder didn't look like proof. It looked like a gamble. I looked over at her again. She was still texting, still calm, still certain. Then, like a small warning from the universe, a man in blue scrubs walked into the waiting room and looked around. "Family of Diane Miller?" he asked. Lauren shot up instantly. "Me. I'm her daughter." I stood too. "I'm her son." The man's eyes moved between us. "I'm Dr. Patel, ICU attending. We need to discuss her status and next steps." Lauren immediately stepped closer to him, shoulder angled to block me, like she could physically remove me from the conversation. "Doctor," she said quickly, "I'm her medical power of attorney. We can talk privately." Dr. Patel paused, professional but firm. "I can speak with both of you, unless there's a legal restriction." Lauren's smile faltered for half a second. "There is," she said, too fast. "It's complicated." Dr. Patel glanced at me. "Sir, are you on the approved list?" "I'm not," I admitted, "because my sister put restrictions on file tonight. I just arrived." Lauren's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected me to say it so plainly. Dr. Patel gave a slow nod. "All right, here's what I can do. I can give general information with discretion, but for decisions, we must follow the documented authority. If you have paperwork, ma'am, we'll need it verified." Verified. That word landed like a hook in my chest. Lauren tightened her grip on the folder. "Of course, it's in here." Dr. Patel gestured toward a small consultation room nearby. "Let's step in." Lauren moved first, fast. I followed, and for the first time since I arrived, she couldn't stop me without making a scene in front of a doctor. Inside the consultation room, the door clicked shut. The air felt heavier. Dr. Patel sat, opened a file on his tablet, and looked at us both. "Your mother is currently sedated for airway protection and to reduce agitation while we run diagnostics," he said. "We suspect a stroke, but we're still confirming. The next 24 to 48 hours are important." My throat tightened. Stroke. That word carried a cold finality. I asked, "Will she wake up?" Dr. Patel held my gaze. "We intend to lighten sedation once we have certain results, but I need you to understand, if swelling increases or complications arise, she may not be able to communicate clearly. That's why decision-making authority matters." Lauren took that opening immediately. She slid the folder across the table like she was presenting evidence in court. "I have her medical power of attorney," she said. She signed it. Dr. Patel didn't touch it right away. He looked at the top page, then at Lauren. "We'll have our legal department confirm it." "When was it executed?" Lauren's answer came too smoothly. "Last week." Something in me snapped into sharper focus. "Last week. Mom and I talked 2 days ago." She didn't mention it. And if it was last week, why was Lauren guarding it like it was signed 5 minutes ago? Dr. Patel nodded, still neutral. "All right, we'll verify." In the meantime, I encourage both of you to coordinate. Your mother will need support." Lauren's voice softened, almost theatrical. "I'm here. I've been here. I just want what's best for her." I couldn't hold it in anymore. Not anger. Clarity. "Doctor," I said, "my sister has told staff and family that Mom doesn't want to see me. I want that noted, because I don't believe that's true." Lauren's head whipped toward me. "Ethan," Dr. Patel raised a hand, "I can't comment on family disputes, but I can say this. Once your mother is awake and oriented, we can ask her directly about visitation and who she wants involved." Lauren's face tightened again, just for a moment, and that moment told me everything. Lauren wasn't afraid of doctors. She wasn't afraid of paperwork. She wasn't even afraid of me. Not really. She was afraid of my mother waking up. Lauren wasn't afraid of doctors. She wasn't afraid of paperwork. She wasn't even afraid of me. Not really. She was afraid of my mother waking up. That realization steadied me in a way anger never could. After Dr. Patel left the consultation room, Lauren gathered the folder like it was precious, then stood with that stiff, self-righteous posture she always used when she thought she'd won. "See," she said, "the doctor understands. You need to stop creating problems." I kept my voice low. "I'm not creating problems. I'm trying to protect Mom from problems you're creating." Lauren's nostrils flared. "I'm the one here. I'm the one making decisions. You're a visitor." That word visitor was deliberate. It wasn't about hospital policy. It was about family status. I didn't respond. I just watched her walk out of the room first, like she had the right to lead, and I followed, because I refused to let her control the physical space too. Back in the waiting area, Lauren immediately started texting again. I could practically see the messages she was sending. Ethan showed up and caused drama. Ethan is stressing everyone out. Ethan only cares now that it's serious. And the worst part was, I knew she'd get traction. In my family, the person who speaks first becomes the truth. I sat down, opened my notes app, and started writing a timeline, because if I couldn't be loud, I could be precise. 2 days ago, Mom and I spoke. She sounded normal, no mention of POA. Today, hospital says Lauren is decision maker, visitation restricted. Lauren claims, Mom doesn't want to see you, and POA signed last week. Then I wrote something else underneath, in all caps, "Verive the document." Because the more I replayed Lauren's tone, the more obvious it became that she wasn't relying on truth. She was relying on intimidation and speed. An hour passed. Nurses came and went. The vending machine couple was replaced by a man in a suit staring at the floor. The ICU waiting room felt like a place where time didn't move, it just collected. At some point, a social worker came by and introduced herself as Megan. She asked if we had questions, if we needed accommodations, if we understood the visitation policies. Lauren turned on her responsible daughter's smile so fast it was almost impressive. "We're fine," Lauren said. "I'm her medical power of attorney." Megan nodded, then glanced at me. "And you're her son," I said. "Ethan." Lauren cut in immediately. "He lives out of state. He's just visiting." Megan's eyes softened, the way they do when they see someone get dismissed in front of them. "I'm sorry you're going through this," she told me. And there it was again. Sympathy, but no access. I waited until Lauren stepped away to take a phone call before I leaned toward Megan. "I need to ask you something," I said quietly. "If there's a medical power of attorney on file, does the hospital verify it, or do you just accept whatever the person shows you?" Megan hesitated, careful. "We don't give legal advice, but yes, documents are reviewed, especially if they affect care decisions or restrict information." "Can I request that review be expedited?" I asked. Megan looked at me for a moment, weighing how much she could say. "You can speak with patient relations, and if you believe there's a dispute or something improper, you should document your concerns." Document. Another word that felt like a door cracking open. "Thank you," I said. When Lauren came back, she saw Megan standing near me and her expression tightened. She didn't say anything, but her eyes lingered on us like a warning. I didn't wait for her to speak first. "Lauren," I said, "I want a copy of the POA for my records." Lauren's mouth twisted. "No, I'm not asking for fun," I said. "I'm asking because if Mom's condition worsens, I need to understand who has authority and what it covers." Lauren took a step closer, lowering her voice. "You don't need anything. You're not involved." I met her eyes. "That's not your decision." Lauren's gaze flicked toward the nurse's station like she was considering calling security. Then she looked back at me and smiled, small, confident. "You know what?" she said sweetly. "Fine, I'll show you a page, one page, so you can stop acting paranoid." She pulled the folder open just enough that I could see the top document. She held it angled toward herself, like she was feeding a dog scraps. At first glance it looked official. Letterhead, blocks of text, signature line. Then my eyes went to the bottom. There was a notary stamp. That detail was like a light switching on in my brain. Because notary stamps aren't just decoration, they're identifiers. I leaned in slightly. Hold it still. Lauren jerked it back. No pictures. I'm not taking a picture, I said. I'm reading the notary name. Lauren's eyes narrowed. Why? Planning to harass them too? I ignored the jab and focused on the stamp while I could. The ink was slightly smeared, like it had been pressed in a hurry. I caught the name and commission details just long enough to memorize them. Samuel Reed, Notary Public, commission number. I couldn't catch the whole number, but I got the name clearly. Lauren snapped the folder shut again. Satisfied, I nodded slowly, for now, but inside my pulse had picked up, not with panic, with purpose. Because if there was a notary involved, there was a log. I knew that much from basic life stuff. House closings, car titles, the boring adult world where signatures actually matter. Notaries keep records. They verify identity. They record time, date, what was signed. Some keep a journal of every notarization. And if Lauren had rushed something while Mom was sedated, that journal would be the one thing Lauren couldn't manipulate after the fact. I walked out of the waiting room and found a quiet corridor near a water fountain. Then I called my friend Olivia. Olivia and I went to college together. She's the type who doesn't panic, doesn't ramble, and doesn't let you hide behind vague statements. She's also a paralegal at a small firm that handles estate and elder issues. She answered on the second ring. Ethan? Olivia, I said, keeping my voice low. I need help and I need it fast. As I explained the situation, my words started coming out clipped and sharp like I'd been holding my breath for hours. When I told her Lauren claimed Mom signed a medical power of attorney last week, Olivia didn't say wow or that's crazy. She said the one thing I needed. Do you have a copy of the document, she asked. No, I admitted. She won't give me one. But I saw the notary stamp. Name Samuel Reed. There was a pause, Olivia thinking. Then she said, okay, notaries keep journals. If he notarized it, there should be an entry with date, time, type of document, and how the signer was identified. Sometimes even a note about the signer's condition depending on the notary. My stomach tightened. Can I get that journal entry? Not directly, Olivia said, but an attorney can request it, and if there's a dispute, that log becomes evidence. Evidence. That word wrapped around my ribs like armor. What if Mom was sedated? I asked. Olivia's voice sharpened slightly. Then it's a huge issue. A competent notary should refuse to notarize if the signer isn't aware and willing. I leaned against the wall, staring at the floor. Lauren is restricting visitation. She's telling everyone Mom doesn't want to see me. Olivia let out a slow breath. Ethan, this sounds like a control play. You need to document everything. Times, names. Also call patient relations and tell them there's a dispute about authority and capacity. I'm doing that next, I said. What else? Olivia hesitated, then said, check the notary's commission status online. Most states have a lookup. Confirm he's real. Confirm where he's based. If he's local and Lauren somehow used him in the hospital. She stopped, then added, that would mean she didn't just plan this today. That idea made my skin prickle. Because I'd been assuming Lauren was improvising. But what if she wasn't? I thanked Olivia and ended the call. Then I pulled up the state notary lookup on my phone. Hands steady now. I found a listing for Samuel Reed. Active commission. Local address. Real person. So Lauren hadn't forged a stamp. She'd gotten a real notary involved. Which begged a darker question. How do you convince a real notary to notarize something from a hospital bedside? I stared at the notary's listing for a long moment, then hit call. It rang, and rang. Voicemail. This is Samuel Reed. Leave a message. I swallowed and left the most measured voicemail of my life. Mr. Reed, my name is Ethan Miller. I believe you notarized a document for my mother, Diane Miller. She is currently in ICU, and there is a dispute regarding when and how that document was executed. Please call me back as soon as possible. I didn't accuse him. I didn't threaten. I just made it clear the situation was being watched. Then I sat there in the hallway, phone in my hand, waiting for the return call that didn't come. When I walked back into the ICU waiting room, Lauren looked up immediately. Where were you? She asked, too casually. I shrugged. Making calls. Lauren's smile tightened. To who? People who can help me understand what's happening, I said. Lauren scoffed. You're unbelievable." Before I could answer, the doors to the ICU wing opened and a man walked in. My Uncle Mark. He spotted Lauren first, then me. His expression hardened as he moved toward us. "Ethan," he said, like my name was an accusation. "What the hell is going on? Lauren says you're trying to interfere." Lauren stood up quickly and took his arm, guiding him to a chair like she was the hostess of a tragedy. "Uncle Mark, thank God you're here," she said. "He's making everything harder. Mom is fighting for her life and he's turning it into some weird power struggle." I felt my jaw clench. Mark looked at me. "Is that true?" I forced myself to speak slowly. "Uncle Mark, I flew in the moment the hospital called. I asked to see Mom. Lauren put restrictions on visitation and claims Mom doesn't want to see me. She also claims she has medical power of attorney, signed last week." Mark's eyes flicked to Lauren. "Do you?" Lauren nodded quickly. "Yes. Mom wanted me to handle things. She said Ethan would make it about himself." My fists tightened again, but I kept them at my sides. "That's not what Mom said to me 2 days ago." Lauren's voice rose a little. "Because she doesn't tell you everything. You don't live here." Mark rubbed his forehead, overwhelmed. Okay. We don't need to fight. We do need to be careful," I said quietly but firmly. "Because if Mom is sedated, she can't confirm anything right now. That means whoever controls the paperwork controls her life." Lauren snapped. "Stop talking like I'm some villain." I looked her in the eye. "Then stop acting like one." For a moment the room went still. Even Mark stopped moving, like he sensed something real underneath my words. Lauren recovered first. She always did. She turned to Mark with watery eyes that appeared like a switch had been flipped. "He hates me," she whispered. "He thinks I'm stealing Mom. I'm just trying to keep her calm." Mark's face softened. "Lauren." And there it was, the pattern I'd known my whole life. Facts didn't matter as much as Lauren's emotions. I took a step back, because arguing in that room would only feed her. Instead, I said to Mark, "You don't have to pick sides. Just don't let anyone pressure you into repeating things you haven't verified. Mom deserves better than family politics." Mark looked uncertain. He glanced between us, then finally said, "I'm going to talk to the doctor." Lauren immediately rose, ready to escort him, ready to control even that. And as they walked toward the nurse station together, Lauren turned her head slightly and gave me a look over her shoulder, cold, flat, and unmistakably threatening. It wasn't a sister looking at a brother. It was a person guarding a plan. I sat down again, but my mind was moving too fast for my body to feel tired, because now I had 3 separate threads, and all of them pointed to something ugly. Lauren was restricting access. Lauren was using a POA as a weapon, and a real notary had been involved, meaning there was a record somewhere that would either confirm her story or destroy it. My phone stayed silent. No call from Samuel Reed. No update from patient relations yet. Just the hum of the ICU doors opening and closing, like the hospital itself was breathing. And I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Lauren did with that paperwork, she did it during a window when my mom couldn't fight back. The only question was how big that window really was and what exactly Lauren was trying to take. The only question was how big that window really was and what exactly Lauren was trying to take. By the time the ICU doors swallowed Uncle Mark and Lauren again, I wasn't sitting in a waiting room anymore. I was sitting in the middle of a hostile takeover, and my mother was the company. I stood up and walked to the elevators, not because I was leaving, but because I needed to get out of that room before I did something stupid. My mind was racing through the same loop. Lauren had legal authority on paper. The hospital was treating her like the gatekeeper, and my mom was sedated, meaning the one person who could shut this down with a simple sentence couldn't speak. That left one option: follow the trail. On the first floor, I found the patient relations office. It was one of those hospital departments that feels like it exists to absorb panic. Soft chairs, warm lighting, posters about compassion. A woman at the desk looked up. "Hi," she said. "How can I help you?" "My name is Ethan Miller," I told her. "My mother is Diane Miller in ICU. I need to report a concern about a medical power of attorney document and restricted visitation." Her expression shifted into professional seriousness. "Okay, have a seat. I'll get someone." A few minutes later, a patient relations representative named Carla came out. She was in her 40s, hair pulled back, the kind of calm that doesn't judge you but doesn't let you ramble either. She led me into a small room. "Tell me what's going on," she said. So I did. Not the emotional history, not the childhood favoritism, just the facts. "I flew in as soon as the hospital called," I said. "My sister Lauren is blocking my access. She told staff that my mother doesn't want to see me. She claims she has medical power of attorney, signed last week. My mother is currently sedated and can't confirm anything. I believe the document may have been executed improperly. Carla's eyes stayed on mine. Do you have a copy of the document? No, I said. She won't provide it. I saw a notary stamp. Samuel Reed. I've tried to contact him. Carla nodded slowly. All right, here's what I can tell you. If there is a power of attorney on file, we verify it before we follow it for major decisions. Visitation restrictions can be requested by a legal decision maker, but we also consider patient rights. If there is a dispute, it can trigger an ethics consult. Can we do that? I asked immediately. An ethics consult? Yes, Carla said. We can initiate one, but I need details. When did you arrive? Who told you you couldn't visit? And what exactly were you told? I opened my notes app and read my timeline. Times, names, words used. I could feel my heart pounding, but Carla's steadiness helped anchor me. When I finished, she asked, has your sister provided the document to the hospital? She showed it to Dr. Patel, I said. He said it would be verified. Carla made a note. Good. Verification is key. Also, if your mother regains capacity, she can override who she wants involved. The challenge is determining capacity. She talked to me 2 days ago, I said. She was herself. Carla looked at me carefully. I'm going to contact ICU administration and ask for clarification about the visitation restriction and the status of the POA verification. I can't promise an immediate change, but I can promise your concerns will be documented. Documented again. I nodded, grateful and still furious. Thank you. As I stood to leave, Carla added, one more thing. If you believe your mother is being exploited or coerced, you can also request a consult with the hospital's social work team for potential elder abuse concerns. The words elder abuse made my stomach flip. It sounded too extreme to say out loud, like a line you don't cross unless you're sure. But Lauren's behavior didn't feel like normal family conflict anymore. It felt strategic. I'll consider it, I said. But right now I just need to see my mom. Carla gave a small nod. Understood. When I got back to the ICU floor, Lauren wasn't in the waiting room. Uncle Mark was. He looked tired, like the stress had finally caught up with him. He spotted me and stood. Doctor, Patel gave me an update, he said. It doesn't look good, Ethan. My throat tightened. Did he say when she might wake up? Maybe tomorrow, Mark replied. They're keeping her sedated until they know more. I stared at the ICU doors. Tomorrow felt like a lifetime. Mark hesitated, then said, Lauren told me you're calling lawyers. I looked at him. I called a friend to understand what a POA means. That's it. Mark's face creased. Why are you so suspicious? Lauren's always been intense, but she loves your mom. I'm not questioning whether she loves mom, I said. I'm questioning what she's doing with that love. Mark frowned. That doesn't make sense. It will, I said quietly, and hated myself for how ominous it sounded. At that moment, Lauren walked back in. She had a coffee in her hand and a phone pressed to her ear. She stopped when she saw me, and her eyes narrowed before she turned away and continued talking. I couldn't hear the words, but I could hear the tone. Controlled, urgent. Then she hung up and walked straight to Mark, ignoring me. Uncle Mark, she said, we need to talk. Mark glanced at me uncertain, then followed her a few steps away. Lauren lowered her voice, but not enough. I caught fragments. He's trying to challenge my authority, stressing everyone out. We might need security if he doesn't stop. My jaw clenched hard enough to ache. She was setting the stage to remove me physically. I walked toward them. If you're talking about me, you can do it to my face. Lauren turned, eyes cold. Fine. To your face. Stop. You're not helping. I'm helping by making sure Mom isn't being railroaded, I said. Why won't you give me a copy of the POA? Lauren lifted her chin. Because you'll twist it. That's not a legal reason, I replied. Mark stepped between us slightly. Both of you, please. Lauren exhaled, then said in a voice that was meant to sound magnanimous. Okay, you want involvement? Here's involvement. Dr. Patel said Mom might need decisions made quickly. I'm going to do what's best. If you want to be useful, go home and rest instead of causing chaos. I stared at her. You mean disappear? Lauren's eyes flashed. I mean stop performing. Performing. That was rich coming from her. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked back to my chair and sat down. Not because I'd surrendered, but because I'd learned something in the last few hours. Lauren thrived on visible conflict. If she could get me escorted out, she'd tell everyone I was unstable and dangerous, and then she'd have the hospital and the family fully aligned behind her. So I stayed calm. I watched. I waited for facts. Around 2 a.m., a nurse came into the waiting area and called Lauren's name. Lauren stood instantly and followed her into the ICU wing. Uncle Mark went too. I stayed seated, my hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were pale. 10 minutes later, Mark returned alone. His face was gray. They said she had a blood pressure spike, he whispered. They adjusted her meds. Did you see her? I asked. Mark nodded, just through the glass. She looks small. I swallowed hard. Did she seem aware? No, Mark said. She's out. I stared at the floor, trying to keep my breathing steady. My mother, this strong, stubborn woman, was lying behind glass, while my sister played gatekeeper with paperwork. That thought hardened into something I hadn't expected. Resolve without rage. Because rage burns out. Resolve doesn't. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered immediately. Hello? A man's voice said. Is this Ethan Miller? Yes. This is Samuel Reed. My pulse jumped. Mr. Reed, thank you for calling back. He cut in, polite but cautious. I can't discuss private details over the phone without proper authorization. But I received your message and I'm concerned. You mentioned a dispute. I'm not asking you to give me my mother's private medical information, I said quickly. I'm asking about the notarization itself. My mother is in ICU and sedated. My sister claims a power of attorney was executed. I need to know when you notarized it. There was a pause long enough that I could hear his breathing. I can't confirm names, he said slowly, but I can say I notarized a medical document at Mercy General recently. My stomach tightened. Recently as in last week. Another pause. Recently as in within the last 48 hours, he said. The hallway seemed to tilt. Within 48 hours, I repeated, voice low. So not last week. I'm not commenting on what someone told you, Reed replied. I'm telling you what I did. I forced myself not to explode. Mr. Reed was the signer, alert and coherent. I follow state requirements, Reed said quickly, and there was an edge in his voice now. Defensive. That's not my question, I said. Was the signer alert and coherent? Silence. Then carefully he said, I verified identity. I asked the required questions. The person indicated willingness. My mouth went dry. That was lawyer language without being a lawyer. Answers that weren't technically lies, but weren't the truth you were looking for either. Were there hospital staff present? I asked. Yes, Reed said, then added, I'm going to suggest you have an attorney contact me formally if you want anything beyond that. Before I could respond, he said, I have another call, and hung up. I sat there, staring at my phone like it had just bitten me. Within 48 hours, which meant Lauren had lied to Dr. Patel, lied to me, probably lied to Uncle Mark. And most importantly, if the notarization happened in the last 48 hours, it likely happened while Mom was already in crisis. My stomach churned. I immediately texted Olivia. Notary called back, admitted notarization happened within last 48 hours. He's evasive, says attorney should contact formally. Olivia replied a minute later, that's big, do not confront, get formal requests started. Also ask hospital for exact time. Doc was presented. There will be intake/scan timestamp. Scan timestamp. Another trail. I stood up and walked to the ICU reception desk again. The nurse behind it was different now. Younger, tired eyes. Hi, I said softly. I don't want to cause problems, but I need to ask, is there a scanned document in my mom's chart for medical POA? If so, what's the timestamp of when it was uploaded? The nurse's eyes narrowed. Not hostile, just cautious. I can't provide that. I'm not asking for content, I said. Just the timestamp. She hesitated, then said, even that is considered part of her record. I nodded. Okay, who can I ask? Patient relations? Legal? The nurse glanced around, then leaned slightly forward. If there's a dispute, it goes to administration. And if you believe a document was executed improperly, you need to say that clearly to patient relations. I did, I said. The nurse studied me for a moment, then lowered her voice. Between you and me, these situations, they get messy, but the system does track document intake. My heart pounded. So there is a timestamp. The nurse's expression didn't change, but her silence was confirmation. I thanked her and stepped back. When I returned to the waiting room, Lauren was sitting again, scrolling her phone like she had all the time in the world. But when she saw me, her eyes sharpened. She was reading my movements like a chess opponent. You're still here, she said. I'm not going anywhere, I replied. Lauren's smile was thin. You should. You're not on the list. You're not allowed back there. I'm not trying to go back there, I said evenly. I'm trying to make sure Mom's rights are protected. Lauren's voice hardened. Her rights are protected by me. I looked at her for a long beat. Then why did you lie about when that document was signed? The words were out before I could stop them. Not shouted, just spoken. Lauren's expression froze just for half a second. Then she recovered. What are you talking about? I leaned forward, keeping my voice low so Mark wouldn't hear, so nobody else would either. I know it wasn't signed last week. Lauren's eyes flashed. You don't know anything. I sat back. I know enough. Lauren's jaw clenched. You called the notary. I didn't answer. Her nostrils flared. You have no boundaries. I almost laughed. No boundaries coming from the woman who had barred me from my mother's bedside. I said quietly, if Mom wakes up and asks why I wasn't there, what are you going to tell her? Lauren's eyes flicked toward the ICU doors. For the first time, she looked unsettled. Then her expression hardened into something uglier. She won't ask, Lauren said. The way she said it chilled me. Not because it meant my mother might not wake up, though that fear was always there, but because it revealed Lauren's mindset. Lauren wasn't planning for Mom to speak. Lauren was planning for Mom to be silent long enough for the paperwork to stick. I stood. I'm going to file a formal dispute in the morning. I'm going to request an ethics consult, and I'm going to request verification of the notary log. Lauren shot up too, voice sharp. You will ruin her care with your paranoia. No, I said. I'll ruin your plan with facts. Mark looked up, alarmed. What plan? Ethan, what are you talking about? Lauren turned toward him instantly, eyes bright with anger and something close to panic. He's accusing me of things because he's jealous. He always does this. I met Mark's gaze. Uncle Mark, I'm not asking you to choose. I'm asking you to pay attention. Lauren lied about when Mom signed that POA. The notary confirmed it was within 48 hours. Mark's mouth opened slightly. Lauren, is that true? Lauren's face tightened. He doesn't know what the notary said. I know what I heard, I said. Lauren looked like she wanted to scream, but she didn't. Instead, she grabbed her phone and started typing furiously. And I knew before any message came in exactly what she was doing next. She wasn't going to argue with me. She was going to activate the hospital against me. Because if she could get me removed before morning, she'd have one more night alone with the paperwork. One more night where my mom couldn't speak. And I could feel it in my bones. Whatever Lauren had tried to pull, it wasn't finished yet. Whatever Lauren had tried to pull, it wasn't finished yet. I braced myself for the security angle. I expected a guard, a stern warning, a request to leave, but instead, about 10 minutes later, a woman in a blazer and badge walked into the waiting room with a nurse beside her. She introduced herself calmly. I'm Denise, ICU administration. We've been made aware there's a conflict regarding visitation and decision-making authority. I need both of you to come with me. Lauren stood up instantly, putting on that wounded but responsible expression like she'd been unfairly attacked. Thank you, she said, as if Denise had arrived to save her. I stood too. I'll come. Uncle Mark rose halfway from his chair. Should I? Denise held up a hand. One family member may join. If you're listed as secondary contact, you can come, sir. Mark nodded quickly, and we followed them into a conference room just off the ICU corridor. The moment the door closed, Lauren's posture changed. She sat forward, hands folded, like she was at a deposition she planned to win. Denise didn't waste time. We have a visitation restriction on file from Miss Lauren Miller, she said, looking at a screen. We also have documentation that Miss Lauren Miller is acting under medical power of attorney for Diane Miller. Mr. Ethan Miller, you are disputing this, correct? Yes, I said. I'm disputing the circumstances under which it was executed, and I'm disputing the visitation restrictions being presented as my mother's wishes. Lauren let out a tight sigh. This is ridiculous. Denise kept her tone even. Miss Miller, do you have the POA document with you? Lauren slid the folder onto the table again. Of course. Denise opened it and scanned the first page, then pointed to the notary stamp. This was notarized, she said. Do you know the name of the notary? Lauren answered quickly. Samuel Reed. My stomach tightened slightly at hearing her say it out loud, like she was reclaiming it, but I kept my face neutral. Denise nodded. All right, here's what we can do immediately. We can confirm the document's acceptance in our system, and we can escalate to legal for verification. We can also request an ethics consult due to family dispute. Lauren's voice sharpened. There doesn't need to be an ethics consult. Ethan is just emotional. I spoke before Denise could respond. I request the ethics consult. Lauren turned toward me like I'd spit in her face. You don't get to request anything. Denise cut in. Actually, he does. Anyone can raise a concern. Miss Miller, if the document is valid, the consult will reflect that. If it's not, we need to know. For the first time, Lauren looked truly annoyed that someone in authority wasn't automatically siding with her. Denise continued. Now I need to ask a specific question. Mr. Ethan Miller is alleging timing and capacity issues. Mr. Ethan Miller is alleging timing and capacity issues. Lauren Miller, when was this document executed? Lauren didn't hesitate. Last week. Uncle Mark's head snapped toward her. His face tightened. Denise looked at the page again. The notarization date appears to be. She leaned closer. 2 days ago. The room went very still. Lauren's mouth opened, then closed. Denise looked up. It's dated 2 days ago, Miss Miller. That would be after your mother's admission. Lauren recovered fast. My mother was lucid. She wanted it done. We just hadn't gotten around to it until then. I kept my voice steady. My mother was sedated when I arrived. Dr. Patel said she's been sedated for airway protection. I want the hospital's documentation of sedation timing compared to the notarization time. And I want the notary's journal entry. Lauren's eyes flashed. You can't get that. Denise nodded slowly as if I'd said the exact right thing. We can request an internal review and notify legal. For the notary's record, we'll need formal channels, but we can document your request. Lauren looked at Denise, then at Mark, then at me. Her face had a tight, cornered quality now. She still tried to sound confident, but the smoothness was cracking. This is harassment, Lauren said. He's trying to intimidate me while Mom is dying. Mark's voice came out low and rough. Lauren, why did you tell me it was signed last week? Lauren's eyes darted to him. Because it was discussed last week. It was basically decided. That's not what signed means, Mark said. Denise lifted her hand slightly, returning the room to procedure. Here's what will happen next. We will place a note in the chart that there is a dispute regarding POA execution circumstances. Until legal confirms validity, no irreversible decisions will be made without physician consensus and ethics oversight. Lauren's voice rose. So you're freezing her care because of him? Denise didn't flinch. No, care continues. Authority is being verified. That protects the patient. Then Denise looked at me. Mr. Miller, regarding visitation, your mother is sedated. However, barring a safety concern, immediate family can usually have brief access. We'll need ICU staff approval and infection control compliance. I can't promise, but I can advocate. My throat tightened. That's all I'm asking. 5 minutes. Lauren stood up halfway, furious. She doesn't want him there. Denise looked at Lauren calmly. Miss Miller, right now your mother cannot confirm that. Once she can, we will honor her wishes. Until then, we have to be careful not to allow one party to isolate the patient without verified cause. Isolate? Denise said it like a clinical term, but it landed like a moral statement. After the meeting, Denise spoke to ICU staff. 20 minutes later, a nurse came to get me. Mr. Miller, she said, you can have a brief visit. Mask on, hands sanitized, no phone use, and you will not touch equipment. I nodded so hard it almost hurt. Of course. Lauren watched from her chair with eyes like ice. Uncle Mark avoided looking at her. The nurse led me through the double doors, past the hand sanitizer, into the ICU corridor where every sound felt louder. We stopped at my mom's room. She was behind glass, then inside, pale, still, tubes and monitors doing the work her body couldn't do alone right now. Her hair was brushed back. Her hands looked thinner than I remembered. I didn't cry, not because I didn't feel it, but because I needed to be present, not collapsing. I stepped up to her bedside, careful not to bump anything. I took her hand gently, just skin to skin, warm but limp. Hey Mom, I whispered. It's Ethan. I'm here. Her eyelids didn't move. The ventilator's rhythm filled the silence. I'm sorry I wasn't here sooner, I said softly. I'm sorry I let things stay complicated. I didn't say Lauren's name. I didn't fill the room with my anger. I just talked to her like she could hear me. You don't have to do anything, I told her. You just rest. I'll handle the noise. On the way out, the nurse guided me back to the waiting room. Lauren didn't speak when I returned, but her jaw worked like she was chewing through a thought. That night, I didn't go to a hotel. I stayed in the chair. I slept in fragments. Every time the ICU doors opened, my brain snapped awake. In the morning, Dr. Patel updated us. Swelling was down slightly, and they planned to reduce sedation later that day. Later that day felt like the hinge everything would swing on. While we waited, Olivia connected me with an attorney in Denver named Richard Hahn. He was calm, blunt, and immediately focused on what mattered. "Ethan," he said on the phone, "we need the notary journal entry and the hospital's sedation administration record. If the notarization happened during sedation, it's a problem. Even if it happened during a brief lucid window, we need to know who requested the notary, who was present, and what was asked." "How fast can we get it?" I asked. "Fast enough," he replied. "Hospitals keep meticulous timestamps. Notaries keep journals. People make mistakes when they rush." When I hung up, Lauren was watching me again. She had that look of someone seeing the net tighten. "You're really doing this," she said quietly. "I'm doing what you forced me to do," I answered. Around late afternoon, Denise returned. This time she wasn't alone. A hospital legal liaison came with her, and Megan from social work joined as well. Denise spoke first. "We completed an internal review of document intake and chart timestamps. We also contacted the notary formally." Lauren straightened, eyes widening slightly. "You contacted him?" "Yes," Denise said, "and we received confirmation of his journal entry time." My heart hammered. Denise opened a file and read, "Clinical and precise. The notary journal records a notarization for a medical power of attorney on the date in question at 9:42 p.m. I felt my stomach drop, because 9:42 p.m. was the same evening I arrived when Mom was already sedated. Denise continued, "The hospital medication administration record indicates Diane Miller was administered sedation at 8:57 p.m. and remained under sedation during that period, per nursing notes." Lauren's face lost color in real time. Mark made a small sound, like air leaving his lungs. Lauren tried to speak, but only a thin breath came out. Then she forced words through clenched teeth. She was awake. She was aware. Megan from social work spoke gently, but firmly. "The nursing notes don't reflect that, and the notary journal notes indicate the signer was drowsy and responded minimally." Lauren's eyes flashed. "That's not what happened." Denise didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. "Given the dispute and the evidence, the hospital will not accept this document as valid authority at this time. Legal will require further verification or a new document executed when the patient is demonstrably alert and oriented." Lauren's mouth trembled. Then she snapped. "So you're taking away my right to protect my mother because my brother showed up to ruin everything?" Richard Hahn had joined by phone on speaker at my request. His voice came through calm and sharp. "No, Miss Miller. The hospital is declining an instrument that appears executed during incapacity. That protects your mother, not your brother." Lauren looked at me with raw hatred now. "You did this." I held her gaze. "You did this when you tried to sign her life away while she couldn't even open her eyes." The room went silent again. Denise turned to me. "Mr. Miller, until your mother regains capacity, decision-making will follow medical standard hierarchy and physician consensus with ethics oversight. Once she is awake, we can ask her directly who she wants involved." Lauren's voice cracked. "She'll choose me." Mark finally spoke, and his voice sounded older than it had yesterday. "Lauren, why would you do paperwork in the hospital like that?" Lauren's eyes filled, but not with the kind of tears that come from guilt. They were the same tears she used as armor. "Because nobody else does anything," she cried. "I'm always the one here, always. And he comes in and suddenly he's the hero?" I didn't respond. Because the truth was, Lauren had just confessed her motive without realizing it. This wasn't about Mom's wishes. It was about Lauren's status. That evening they lowered Mom's sedation. It took time. Her eyelids fluttered, her brow furrowed, her hand moved faintly. When she finally opened her eyes, they were unfocused at first. But then they found me, and even through the oxygen mask and the exhaustion, even through confusion and pain, she looked at me like she knew exactly who I was. "Ethan," she rasped. I leaned in, voice shaking despite everything I'd tried to control. "Yeah, Mom, I'm here." Her eyes watered. "Where were you?" I swallowed hard. "I was here. They didn't let me in at first." Mom's gaze drifted toward Lauren, who was standing near the doorway like she didn't know whether to enter or flee. Mom's voice was weak but clear enough to cut through all the noise Lauren had tried to build around her. "I wanted my son." Lauren took a step forward. "Mom, you were confused." Mom lifted her hand slightly, a small stop gesture. Even sedated, even exhausted, she still had that quiet authority. "No," Mom whispered, "not confused." Lauren froze. Dr. Patel asked gently, "Diane, do you feel able to tell us who you want involved in your care decisions?" Mom blinked slowly. Both, she said, then paused, swallowing. But, no secrets. I felt something in my chest loosen that had been tight for years. No secrets. That was the whole story in 2 words. Over the next week, Mom stabilized. Recovery was slow, but she improved. The hospital involved both of us, but only under clear boundaries. Lauren tried to regain her footing, but the notary log and the timestamps had changed everything. Because once a lie becomes documented, it stops being a misunderstanding. It becomes a fact. Lauren didn't apologize. Not really. She cycled through anger, blame, silence, and then a thin version of politeness. But she stopped trying to control access, because she couldn't do it without someone asking, "Is this another trick?" Uncle Mark stayed closer too, not as a referee but as a witness. He started asking questions instead of absorbing Lauren's version as truth. And I did something I should have done years ago. I stopped negotiating my place in my mother's life. After Mom was discharged to rehab, I sat with her in a quiet room while she did occupational therapy exercises with shaky hands. She looked tired but present. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Lauren, she gets scared. She grabs things." I nodded. "I know. But fear doesn't justify shutting me out." Mom's eyes filled. "I never wanted that." "I believe you," I said. "But I need you to hear me clearly. I'm not letting anyone isolate you again. Not with emotions, not with paperwork." Mom squeezed my fingers weakly. "Good," she whispered. "Don't." Before I flew back to Denver, Richard helped Mom put safeguards in place, done properly, calmly, when she was fully awake, clear medical directives, a revised, properly executed POA that required 2-party notification for major decisions, a system that made it harder for anyone, Lauren or me, to act unilaterally in the dark. And I told Lauren something I'd never said to her in my life. I said it without yelling, without shaking. "Lauren, you don't get to use Mom as proof you're the good child." I told her in the rehab parking lot. "If you want to be there for her, be there. But you don't get to erase me again." Lauren stared at me, and for a moment I thought she might finally say something real. Instead, she said, "You always think you're right." I nodded once. "Not always. Just this time." Then I got in my car and left, not with victory swelling in my chest, but with a different kind of relief, the kind that comes when you stop begging for a door to open and start building a new one. If there's one lesson I took from all of this, it's simple and brutal. The people who want control the most are the ones who will rush decisions when you're too weak to object. And that's why paper trails matter, because feelings can be manipulated, stories can be twisted, families can be pressured into repeating the loudest version of events. But a notary log doesn't care who cries harder. A timestamp doesn't care who plays the victim. And when someone's trying to steal power in the quiet, boring details, those boring details are exactly what can save you.